Day 2 of the Shanghai Cooperation Summit and world leaders have arrived in Samarkand in Uzbekistan for the meet. The second day of the summit will see all heads of state of member nations gather for the main meeting, which means the leaders of Russia, China, India, Pakistan and the 4 Central Asian nations will all be under one roof. The leaders of the 8-nation Shanghai Cooperation Summit, they're all set to discuss regional security, challenges and energy supplies. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Samarkand on Thursday. He will be holding key bilaterals with Iranian, Uzbek and Russian leaders. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also expected to exchange his views on topical, regional and other international issues. During his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, the Indian Prime Minister will discuss issues of strategic ability, situation in the Asia-Pacific, bilateral cooperation within the United Nations and G20. However, there is still no clarity on whether the Indian Prime Minister will hold any bilaterals with the Chinese President. Meanwhile, day 1 of the summit saw a number of crucial key bilaterals taking place, starting with the bilateral between Chinese President and his Russian counterpart. During the meet, the Russian president condemned attempts by the West to create a unipolar world. The Russian president also backed China over Taiwan, asserting on how Moscow firmly adheres to the One China policy. Putin, however, also conceded that Beijing had questions and concerns over the invasion, which is now in its 7th month. China has so far refused to outrightly condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It has not imposed any sanctions on Moscow, but has stepped up economic assistance to Russia, boosting bilateral trade to record levels in a boon to Russian business amid Western sanctions. Meanwhile, the Chinese president told his Russian counterpart that Beijing was willing to work with Moscow as great powers here.
对世界之变、时代之变、历史之变，中方愿同俄方一道努力，体现大国担当，发挥引领作用，为变乱交织的世界注入稳定性和正能量。
Now, for more on this, we're being joined by Principal Diplomatic Correspondent Siddhant Sibal and our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik, who've been tracking all of the developments from Samarkand. Thank you both of you for joining us. Siddhant, coming to you first, can you just take us through the engagements that have been planned for day 2, that is the main day of the summit?
Well, yes, Hema, the key focus today in the early half of the day has been on the SCO Summit. The summit begins in a short while from now. We will get the photo ops, the visuals in a short while. There will be restricted meeting of the 8 leaders, the member countries, and then, of course, the expanded format meeting. It's the family photo that everyone is keenly awaiting because the Indian Prime Minister, the Pakistani Prime Minister, the Chinese President and the Russian President will be together. This second half of the day is devoted to the bilaterals. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to have 3 bilaterals with the Russian President, with the Iranian President and with the Uzbek President, who is of course the host of the country. But the big question is, will there be a meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President, or the Indian Prime Minister and the Pakistani Prime Minister? We know relationship between India and China has suffered a big blow after the Chinese aggressive actions at the line of actual control that led to death of 20 Indian soldiers, and since then India has increased scrutiny on Chinese investment, banned Chinese apps. So any meeting, while there is no chance of any structured bilateral, but even a handshake is going to make headlines and will be seen as a major breakthrough when it comes to these 2 Asian giants.
Right, absolutely, Siddhant. Now, for more on this, let's just go across to our Pakistan Bureau Chief, Anas, who's also joining us right now. Anas, what do you think will be the focus of Pakistan at the summit, and can we expect more bilaterals on the sidelines?
Well, Haim, last question first. What we know that the Pakistani side has already held a first of the bilateral for the day. There are 2 more that are scheduled. In fact, the Pakistani Prime Minister has literally just arrived at the residence of where President Xi, the Chinese president, is staying, and in a very short while, rather in some moments from now, we'd be seeing that the Chinese president and Pakistani Prime Minister is to hold their bilateral will get underway. That will be the second bilateral that Shehbaz Sharif will hold, and after which we'll see. In fact, there is a piece of information that has just literally come in. The bilateral meeting between President Xi and the Chinese president and the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has formally begun. So that will be a very key, a very important bilateral meeting to be watched out, because it comes in the backdrop of no engagement,
right,
virtually no engagement between Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Chinese President Xi since Shehbaz Sharif has taken charge. Therefore, whatever that is discussed, be that be bilateral trade, regional security, mutual interest, and by and large the situation in Afghanistan, economic viability, the economic progress in Pakistan, everything will be very, very closely watched out.
Right,
for Pakistan,
absolutely.
the first part of your question with regards to the SCO particularly, there is only one part, and that is to engage and to expand the horizon when it comes to engagement bit. Okay?
Right, absolutely, Anas. And as Siddhant mentioned, there is now no possibility of a structured bilateral, but even a handshake between the Pakistan and Indian side is going to be of course, significance here. So can we expect any sort of engagement?
Well, as Siddhant has said, and as you were saying as well, that there are no chances of a structured bilateral meeting, but the Pakistani and Indian prime ministers are literally hotels apart. The hotels are literally facing each other here in Samarkand and in the SCO city, to be precise. The chances of a polar side cannot be ruled out, of a handshake cannot be ruled out, and we have to keep in mind that this platform has provided at least two opportunities for India and Pakistan to engage constructively. First, in 2016 in Astana, when the then Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif met Prime Minister Modi in Astana, and then lastly in 2019 in July in Bishkek, when the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan walked up to Prime Minister Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, in the holding room and congratulated him upon his re-election. So will history repeat, or will there be a miss? That is a big question. But owing to the problems that Pakistan is currently going through, especially the rise in inflation, the flood situation, and that the trade has literally been knackered off, there is no trade virtually happening. This is the optimum opportunity for Pakistan and India to engage, and probably we can see that Shehbaz Sharif can take the lead to break the ice. Him.
All right. Well, Anas and Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us with all the updates. We will, of course, continue to track all of the developments in Samarkand with you two there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.